Welcome everyone. It's so nice to see you, and thank you and for coming and joining us for our Wisconsin Women in Conservation Summer Camp. Today we're going to be talking about managing woodlands. My name is Stephanie, and I'm your camp counselor today. And I work for Marble Seed, an organization formerly known as Moses. And I am the WiWiC Regional Coordinator for the northwest part of the state, which includes Barron, Polk, and Dunn County, and the counties adjacent to them. So we have some other WiWiC team members that are on the call today. Can you all wave? Thank you. Feel free to munch on your lunch while we are having this lunch Zoom. We have three great speakers who will be sharing information during our time today. And to make sure that everyone can hear them, we will keep everyone muted until the end. So during the next hour, I want to encourage each of you to use the chat function at the bottom of your screen. Please share resources and answer each other's questions. Feel free to do that. So let's practice that chat function real quick. We would love it if you would introduce yourself and put your name down and where you are from. Thank you. And then at the very end, we will actually have some time for us to chat out loud, not just in the chat. And if you'd like to stay a little bit longer. So going on to slide 2, something very important that we like to do at our gatherings. We are here today to support each other as we work to care for and steward the land. And part of that process is understanding the history of how we ended up on this land, who was displaced from this land, and what our place is within that history. So I would like all of us to remember that our land acknowledgement embraces both an awareness of past injustices and a recognition of ongoing efforts. So the space where I personally live occupies the ancestral lands of the Dakota tribe. And I would like us to take a moment to reflect on what land acknowledgement means to all of us. And as you continue to reflect moving forward, I encourage you to educate yourself on the current efforts of the First Nation people. If you are interested in some resources, please let us know and we can share those with you. Slide 3 and 4. So a little bit about WiWiC. WiWiC is a 3-year project that is a partnership of 5 different organizations. We are each working in different regions of the state with the goals of building connections between women, farmers, and landowners through workshops and field days and providing conservation education and helping to create plans for conservation across the land. We are in year 2 of the project, but excitingly enough, we've just received word that we were granted another 2 more years of funding. So we are all super excited about that. And then the next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. And that shows what the first part of this 3-year timeline and all of the different events that we are doing each year for this timeline. And as I stated before, we get to do it another 2 years after August 2023. Okay, slide 5. Thanks. So something we want to share, in case you weren't already aware of it, is on the week of July 18th, WiWiC celebrated the 2nd annual Wisconsin Women in Conservation Week, made official by Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers. So that's exciting. And if you want to tap into this great network of conservation educators, we strongly encourage or would like if you could join the WiWiC listserv. You would simply email info@wiwic.org. All right, and then on the next slide, there are a couple of upcoming events that I'd like to share with you. Our next summer camp is on August 25th at noon, and in this session, we will hear from Cara O'Connor of American Farmland Trust about how easements can protect your land. And on the next slide, there is a list of all the dates of our summer field days. We've already had one. So there are many incredible events that are planned around the state for this summer. And you can sign up today. And we're going to drop the events links. Noemi, if you could do that, please, in the chat for everyone, if you want to check those out. And then last but not least, the other thing we'd like to tell people about is our podcast, the Queen Bee Session. check this out if you have some time. These sessions are guaranteed to bring a smile to your face, and you can also find those on our website, and that link will also be put into the chat for you. All right. Okay, so now I would like to turn things over to my fellow co-camp counselor, Elena Byrne, from the nonprofit Renewing the Countryside. She is our WiWiC coordinator for the Southwest region of Wisconsin. Take it away, Elena.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm excited to be co-hosting with you, and did a great job on the presentation, stepping into this role from Moses, aka Marble Seed. I should say Marble Seed, aka Moses, or formerly known as Moses. And I realized we need to fix the logo on that map. So I am really excited to be talking about Woodlands today. And along that line, we have a poll because we'd love to see how many of the people in the room here today are woodland owners, or what your experience is with woodland management. And Sarah, if you can launch that poll, we have 3 quick questions, and that will help us as we move forward and talk with our different experts. Thanks, Sarah. So while everyone's filling out that poll, I would love to introduce Margaret Parsons, who is our first speaker. She is a woodland owner from Portage County, who is an active member of the Wisconsin Woodland Owners Association. She is also on the steering committee for the Women of WOA, which is a fun acronym to say. She is also an owner of the Wisconsin Wool Exchange in Stevens Point, which I thought was really cool. They support local sheep and alpaca farmers and fiber artists by providing an outlet of sales for yarn, fleece, roving, and other fiber-related products. So it's wonderful to hear about ventures that help people live on the land and make their farms a full experience. So I'm really excited about that. And with that, I would like to welcome Margaret.
Okay, thank you, Elena.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, we've owned our land since 1998. We have a little bit more than 40 acres. And we've also belonged to the Wisconsin Woodland Owners Association for that amount of time. The Wisconsin Woodland Owners is an organization, nonprofit of private woodland owners, and our goal is to educate private woodland owners in how to manage their land for sustainable forestry. I think that overall, what everyone is looking for is, first of all, how do we keep our woods healthy and thriving and manage so that they are sustainable for the future? We all know if you plant a tree, you're not going to see that tree grow to its maturity, but we're planting for the next generations. So that's a lot of what we're looking at, is how do we help private woodland owners? And when we first bought our land, one of the first things we did, and there'll be a link later for the DNR in my Wisconsin Woodlands, is to have our local DNR forester come and walk through our woods. And so we looked at what kind of woods do we have, what's on our property, what kinds of things do we want to do with it. So in addition to keeping the woods healthy, we're also looking at what does everyone want from their woods. The best example I can think of this is when we bought our woods, I had a vision of a parkland. My husband had a vision of a lumber mill and sawmill, I think. So we were really somewhat at different, very different. On the other hand, I grew up in the country, but not managing woods, whereas he's been out cutting trees since he was probably about 14. So he had much more experience and knowledge in that area. And so one of the things that I started very early on was getting involved with WOA, going to our field days, going to our annual meetings, and learning as much as I could about how do you take care of your land. And we've also continued with that, and also continue with passing that on. We started a few years ago looking at the fact that there are a lot of women who may own land, but aren't really as clear about what they need to do to manage it and aren't necessarily comfortable asking those questions in a group setting. And that's when we started the Women of WOA. So we have a separate committee and group that meets. We usually try and have field days twice a year, pretty much in April and October, where we can get together, have a different, go out on somebody's land or one of the conservation sites and learn more about how we manage our land. So overall, that's what we've been doing, particularly on our land. And that is a picture behind me, and we'll have some slides a little bit later. We have a really huge diversity. We have some designated wetlands, and when we first got our land, we had the Corps of Civil Engineers come out, and they will actually help mark out where the wetlands are. And so they showed us where exactly on our property we have wetlands. They actually flagged it out because there's some specific things you need to know about not moving dirt out of or into wetlands and changing the composition. We have a variety of trees. We have stands that are fairly natural hardwoods. We have a lot of planted pine plantations, and we have a pond that we dug when we built our home here. And there's all different kinds of things that we need to do for those different areas. We also have a really pretty good size area of what's basically a pollinator meadow out in the back and full of wildflowers. And we've been managing that specifically to keep it open for the pollinators and for the wildflowers. About, let's see, 2 years ago now, we started with NRCS to actually get a written management plan for our land. We had not put it into managed forest law and decided that this was about time to do that. NRCS is a very simple application, and they paid for one of their foresters to come out, again, walked our land, looked at what our goals were, and wrote up the plan, and wrote it up in such a way that we could also submit it for the managed forest law. So they covered the entire cost of that. We were able to get enrolled in managed forest law, which will be a tax savings for us. And then the next year we applied for additional NRCS funding so that we could do some particular practices on our land. We didn't get the funding the first year. We reapplied and got funding. So this coming fall, fortunately, they will help pay for us to start working on controlling our invasive buckthorn, which has been a headache and a half and more than the two of us can keep up with. So we will start with that. And they also provided some funding, which will start next fall or next spring rather, for tree planting. So as we're harvesting some of our trees to keep, again, partly to provide some lumber and some income for us, and also to make sure that the forest stays healthy, we're also planting trees. And last, let's see, it was about the middle of May, we had another 1,500 trees or so that we planted. And this was the first time we had planted red oaks. And because we also have plenty of deer, we had to put tree shelters around each one of those. And so we had a crew who came out here and planted tree shelters, and we're in the process of seeing how well that's going to do to keep the deer from chewing as fast as they come up. We didn't put tree shelters on our red pine, and the deer came through and nipped off about half of those right away. So hopefully they will save the red oak.
Thank you, Margaret. That's great. You just gave us a ton of information.
Right. I have tons of information. I could talk about stuff forever.
Yeah, and I hope everyone could see the poll results that came through. And Sarah, if we could share Margaret's photos now, that would be great.
Oh, okay, sure. Do that. Okay, this is our woods, wildflower woods, and we specifically named it that because we have that combination of a wide diversity of woods, and a wide diversity of wildflowers, and we're really trying to manage that for both. And then we have our sign. We're not part of the tree farm, but we do have a sign which basically says clean air and water starts here. Okay, and then next slide. We are also part of Snapshot Wisconsin, which is a great project. The DNR provides free trail cams if there is not one already in your area. They've divided up the state into different areas and hope to have a trail cam. About once a month, I go out and download those pictures, classify what's on them, and then they get uploaded to Snapshot Wisconsin, and they go to Zooniverse for everybody. So it's a way to start collecting data about what animals are where on different parts. And we did have, we don't hunt too seriously on our land, so we do have a couple of pretty good sized bucks. Okay, next. Oh, this is one of my favorites. We 2 years ago, we could tell he's not a true albino. He's got dark eyes and he's got a little dark patch, but he's been around for a couple of years. And so we got a really good trail cam picture of him. And this year we have at least 2 or 3 white fawns. So he's been busy, and looks like we're going to have a few more herds, but it's interesting to see what we can pick up on the trail cam. Okay, next. Oh, this was the first sighting we had. We've had a lot of discussion about whether this is a wolf or a coyote. I think generally the majority has landed on this as a wolf, and he's been around for a couple of years as well. We also have a black bear, but I didn't have a good shot of him, so I couldn't share his picture. But we have quite the diversity. We have wild turkeys coming through, and again, we're trying to. I love having the wildlife. We're trying to manage some without having them completely eat all our trees and seedlings here, saplings. Okay, next. Partly I have sort of a logger in my back pocket. My husband does forestry professionally, so we're able to do our own cutting. This is his equipment, and it was particularly helpful 3 years ago, I think it was, when that straight line wind came through a good chunk of Wisconsin and knocked down all manner of trees. He was able to get out there and cut right away and market the trees, which has been a problem for a lot of woodland owners to try and clean up after that storm, to get loggers in or to find any kind of market for selling their timber. So this is the equipment that we use in the woods to harvest our trees. Okay, next. Okay, this shot particularly on the left-hand side of my screen was a small clear cut that we had done, and there's a fair amount of controversy about the clear cuts because this looks a little bit better. It's been growing a little bit. It looks terrible right away, but particularly for aspen regeneration, it is the only way to regenerate aspen. You have to have a fairly good size area that is clear cut to let enough sun in to allow the aspen to grow, because they really need full sun. And so that was one of the small areas that we clear cut. On the other photo, we have quite a few pine plantations. They were planted by a previous owner, and we are periodically going through and thinning those as they reach maturity. And then as we continue thinning those, we'll probably be replanting through there. Okay, and next slide. Oh, I didn't have too many good winter slides. I was going through real quick to pick this out. This is actually looking for my porch, and that is actually a snowplow blade. Someone of us worked for the highway department plowing snow and really wanted that, and that is my lawn ornament. But you can see again, we have right in here, we have the pine plantations. We have some that's mostly aspen and some maple behind there. And a lot of diversity again through the that comes through the winter. In terms of looking at goals, one of our goals certainly is recreational. We have trails cut through. If the snow is good enough, we can cross country ski or snowshoe. And that is one of the goals we've had for managing our land, is to have it available for recreational use. There's also, right behind these trees, there is a pond. And so we have quite a diversity of wildlife that comes to the pond as well. This again, behind these trees was one of the cuttings, logging that we did to clear out some of the brush and give these trees a little bit better chance to grow. And then we have a little Leopold bench that we made that's sitting out there again for us to enjoy the land for recreation. Okay, next slide. And this is part of this is some of what turns into the prairie meadow. We mow it off every year or two, and that regenerates the wildflowers. And then again, we've got quite a few maples that we're leaving in there for the fall color. And then on the other side is, again, part of the pine plantation that we're periodically thinning and harvesting.
Margaret, I'll just remind you, there's about 2 more minutes left in this.
Oh, okay, talk fast. All right, this is one of the trees that we had to take down. And just a quick shot of what it looks like when those big trees come down. The video is even more exciting. Okay, next slide. That's what that prairie meadow looks like when it's grown up. That's all bergamot. Bees and butterflies are just happy as can be back there. Okay, next. Oh, my future farmers. We've had the girls a little bit bigger, but they've been practicing the tractor. But they did actually, I guess we didn't get the video clip, but they did actually run some of the equipment with a little bit of help. And part of what I wanted to point out too is they're wearing ear protection. We are just all over safety equipment and appropriate safety gear when anybody's doing any cutting here. Okay, is there more slides or is that the end?
I think there's one more.
There's my other future farmer. Yeah.
I just thought her exuberance was fantastic.
It was, and there's just a great clip of her running the big logger grapple, and which is all joystick controlled, but she was able to lift a log and swing it over onto the tractor. So she was all excited about that.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Margaret. I feel like there's so much more that you could tell us. And yeah. I think hopefully we got the links in the chat for people to learn more about Wisconsin woodland owners. I know you've told us about a lot of field days and events that you have to connect people to information and resources. So I encourage people, if you want to put your email address in the chat, Margaret, then people could reach out to you directly. I think that would be another way for us to keep moving along, but also help people to connect with you and learn more about Wisconsin Woodland Owners Association.
We've included the My Wisconsin Woodlands, which has all kinds of information, and also Golden Sands RC&D, which covers a number of counties, specifically in central Wisconsin. So let's see, did that go through?
Right.
They're all in the chat, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep, there we go.
And I just will also remind people that the link that I just put in the chat is an interview with Margaret, where she goes more in depth about the benefits of Wisconsin Woodland Owners Association.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret. I'm glad you could be with us today. And also getting a peek of the wonderful equipment that you have on your land to deal with trees that need to come out. Just as a reminder, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. And we have Noemi from our team helping manage that, and we'll make sure that the questions either get answered at the end or we will send out later. So with no further ado, I would love to introduce Lauren Larson, who is with us today as a forestry educator for UW-Madison Division of Extension. Lauren works in the Northwestern region based out of Eau Claire County and works with local invasive plant management groups, DNR foresters, state and federal agencies, and woodland owners to design and deliver educational programs to Wisconsin woodland owners. Some of Lauren's current projects include Learn About Your Land classes, Wisconsin Women Woodland Owner Program, managed forest law workshops, and forest health field days. And welcome, Lauren. We're very glad to have you back from maternity leave just in time to be with us today.
Yeah, it timed out nicely because today is my official first day back and I get to be with all of you. This was honestly the best way that I could have pictured coming back. So thank you for inviting me to talk today. Let me go ahead and
share your screen.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'm going to do a quick flash of a baby picture because I can't help it. So
of course.
Let's see.
Everyone's wondering anyway.
I know. Let's see. Are you able to see? It says whiteboard. I don't want a whiteboard.
Yeah, that's not the screen you want.
That's the only option it's giving me. So let's see. This is definitely not what it looked like when we did the test. So I apologize. I don't know. Am I still a co-host? Maybe that might be the issue. It's only letting me show the whiteboard, so I'm not sure.
I have
Still
your
a co-host.
I have your slides if you'd like me to share my screen.
Yeah, that's why we do that, right? Yeah, that would be great. Sorry, no baby picture. Maybe I can figure out how to send one in the chat. Yeah, I really can't help myself with those.
Yeah.
All right.
Them being funky there.
Oh, that's totally fine. Is everybody able to see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Well, again, thank you for having me here today. I could talk, hold up a photo. Oh, I'll do that at the end, definitely. Yeah, I could talk about this honestly for days straight. So I hope that I can do a great intro here. I know I saw in the poll 50% of you are interested in learning more about managing your woodlands. And although I'm not going to get into specific management or specific topics about management because I would go for half of a day. I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can get started and places to look for some information. So yeah, a couple of key points that I want to go over today is really just kind of breaking down how to get started with woodland owner management and how to kind of take what seems like a big scary adventure and break it into funner small components. I'll go over some recent management examples of actually both women that I've worked with recently, which is super exciting, and things that they've done, folks that they've worked with, resources that they've identified, similar to Margaret mentioned MFL and some other things. We'll go through that in a little bit more detail. And then a quick resources recap. So at the very end of the PowerPoint, which I can send a PDF version for all the participants to receive through WiWiC. I have everything is hyperlinked so you can identify the Wisconsin Woodland Owners Association was mentioned. I have them linked, NRCS funding, all of the things that I'll go through. So if you want to take notes, feel free, but don't feel obligated because everything should be hyperlinked at the end. Although technology is failing me today, so who knows, maybe it won't. Can you click the slide? I like to refer to what I hear a lot as the Alice in Wonderland, trying to figure out where to go as far as getting started with woodland ownership and management. It often comes across my desk or my experience in the field as there's so many things that I'm excited about. There are so many ideas that I have. And the more that I learn, the more I want to do. I have no idea where to start. So what I like to call this presentation is the Alice in Wonderland presentation. We're going to start with all these different directions that we can go and try to parse out what it is that can be a great place to get started, or if you're already managing a place to kind of stop, take a breath, and figure out where it is that you'd like to focus. So go ahead and click. And one way that I like to look at it, because I love archery, is you're really trying to think about what are your values? So what are the reasons that you own Woodlands, whether it be inherited or purchased, and what are the reasons that you continue to own it? So if it, we looked at the future farmers, and that very well, maybe one of Margaret's values is holding on to that property for the future generations. And so I like to look at it as how can we turn our values into actions? And that to me is a series of steps that I'll go through pretty quickly here. Identifying your values, identifying your goals, ways that you can get to know your woods, how to sit and think about the harder questions, like what your limitations are, and then talking about the professional and peer help that's available. WiWiC is such a great community of women woodland owners, or women ag owners, and probably many of you have dual cover types in your property. So you might have some ag and some forest land. And we know that we learn well from each other. Groups like the Women Woodland Owners group from WOA. They do an awesome job of keeping peers connected. Here at UW Extension, we do similar things with little networks around the state that we're developing to do events for women woodland owners. So we know how critical it is to keep women connected, professionals, peers, the whole group, to be able to navigate this often difficult and kind of a big topic. Go ahead and click. And then if you're interested, if you want to work more on like a strategic way of turning your values into actions on your woodlands, I will have my contact information at the end. You can send me an email, and I'll send you a goal setting PDF that you can work through. If you're like me and you like to have, everything laid out in front of you and check the boxes, it's a good way to just kind of put your ideas on paper. So just throwing that little bit out there. Okay, so values. I think this is probably the hardest part, right? So as a landowner, we have all these things that we like, and there's all these things that we enjoy, right? And we want to be able to do all of them, and hopefully someday we can. But as far as what I really try to push, either new woodland owners or folks that are just, have owned it for a while or just starting to dip their toe in the water, is start with a value or your values, right? So let's take wildlife. Let's say, ultimately one of my huge loves is archery, bow hunting. I love to just watch the wildlife. I love to have them come on the property. I'd really like them to stay, not a lot of them stay. It seems like they kind of pass through, and you can start to break down, honestly, either in your mind or on paper, from just taking that one value of wildlife, you can start to break down a series of steps. And so to me, those steps are your little goals that get you back full circle to the big goal of wildlife. Go ahead and click. Another archery photo. I love archery. And so once you've kind of honed in on, all right, I think I want to start by attracting and holding wildlife on my property. Go ahead and click. We want to think about the goals as many smaller steps that allow us to achieve our long-term goals. Go ahead and click. Sorry, there's a lot of clicking in mine. So we want to start at 40 yards. Click. And work our way up to start at 10 yards and work our way up to 40 yards. So start with those smaller steps. Okay. I want to attract wildlife. Start by just getting out in your woods, do some activities, put up a trail cam if you have one. Get a trail cam. You can also put out a wildlife tracker, which is a very simple setup with some sand, and you can have the wildlife they walk across, they leave their tracks, you figure out what's on your property, and then go from there. So you can see what you have and work your way up towards what you want. And a shameless plug for some of our classes, we work on teaching landowners how to attract wildlife. And we do have some activities that we can send you. If you're interested, again, shoot me an email about anything that I talk about here, and I'm happy to point you to our recordings or our worksheets or any of those things. So go ahead and click. I actually clicked twice. Yep. So many landowners have multiple goals, and what feels overwhelming is the number of goals or the number of values. But ultimately, when we look at a management plan or the ways that these goals and ideas are funded, they often are kind of the spider web that holds the whole thing together. So it can seem overwhelming at first, but oftentimes once you break it down, they're actually all interconnected. And there's often funding that works across both ag and forestry. Margaret, I think, mentioned a DNR property walk. Folks at NRCS will come out, and or folks from the Farmville biologists at Pheasants Forever will come out and walk the property, talk about, what you have, what your goals are, what you can do with that. Same thing with those DNR foresters. They offer similar services, no strings attached, and can help you identify those funding sources to really start working towards your goals as a landowner. Go ahead and click. Okay, no clicking on this one, yay. Another step, one that I think is a little daunting, but is crucial, is to really get to know your woods. So if you see the graphic on the right, hopefully is coming through clear. We have a lot of diversity, and honestly, I would love to talk about all of the different forest types in Wisconsin because I love to nerd out on those things. But really the thing that I want to touch on is what you have will really designate what you can do. And so figuring out what you have in your woods is really critical to identifying which goals you should be working on maybe first, or which ones you might not be able to do. Or on the flip side, often, there might be more that you're able to do than what meets the eye at first glance. So I think I mentioned I work on a series of Learn About Your Land classes for woodland owners. We do, like to call them forestry crash courses, everything from tree ID to wildlife to timber harvesting. There are some really nice tree ID guides. If you are more of like I want to get outside and take a peek at things, and that's how you learn, there is a Trees of Wisconsin field guide that you can Google that, look on Amazon, look in your local bookstore. It just got updated last year, so it's up to date and ready to go. This is hyperlinked to a really in-depth DNR publication that you could download, or I believe you can request a copy, and just get outside and start sifting through based on where you live, what you might see, and then narrow it down to what you have and start doing some thinking about how that could work with the things that you want to accomplish on your woodlands. The Leaf Snap Plant ID app, I believe there's quite a few of these apps, and I'll be honest, I don't use them. I'm more of a book person, so I like the field guide, but I have heard, especially with identifying invasives versus natives, some of these Plant ID apps are really useful. And if you already have your phone on you, you might give it a try, and if you don't like it, you could go back to the field guide and just get back to that paper and pen. And again, I really push, reach out to professionals, reach out to folks that that own land in your county, or neighbors, really, that can help you identify, like, yeah, we've had these invasives come in, or yeah, we have a ton of these trees on our property, and really just kind of get to know what you have in your woods so you can figure out what it is that you can do feasibly. Go ahead and click. All right, consider some limitations. This is the thing, the negative that nobody wants to really think about. But I urge you, if you are interested in woodland management, to think about the things that might come up for you or are on the horizon, your financial situation, your physical health, the time and distance that it takes to get to your property, and life events, right? So there are a lot of things that, at least for myself, I look around and I see all the things that I want to do, and I have to really slow down and say, okay, financially, what can I afford right now? Physically, what am I able to do with a 3-month-old baby? Not a whole lot. But asking yourself these questions and really, I guess, parsing it out in your mind so that you're able to say, okay, with the wildlife management, I'd really like to put a food plot in, but financially I can do it, but physically I'm going to have to rent equipment, and I live, an hour from my property. So it's going to take some time, and really begin to come up with a timeline as far as limitations go. So what, really canceling, I guess, some of the questions that may come up to get yourself more prepared with what you have and what you want to do. Go ahead and click. And then something else, click again one more time, is, like I mentioned, what you have will really dictate what you can do. I'm not going to talk much about it, but, Margaret mentioned the DNR property walks. Farm bill biologists can come out, help you identify, what it is you have and what you can do. I really urge you, if you're interested in woodland management, it's a great first step to no commitment, free advice and services that you can utilize. Go ahead and click. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the professional help that's available to you as woodland owners, or folks who are interested in owning woodlands, that can really get you achieving your goals and get you if you're interested in more active management. So I'm going to talk quickly through the professionals on the next slide. And some of these folks are actually on the call. I saw a couple in the chat, so that's exciting. If you want to go ahead and click. And how am I doing on time? If somebody wants to interrupt me, please feel free. Yeah, so I put this on just to quickly walk through, and really want to make sure I mention that I picked what I believe from working with these folks, what are the 3 main things that everybody does. And I actually realized that I'm missing a couple here. So I apologize for that. So I provide this table in the slides really to try to point you in the right direction just to get started. So if you take a look at the top cells, you identify, okay, I'm interested in finding some funding to get wildlife to stay on my property. I think I want to put in some food plots. I want to put in a pond, things like that. And I have forest land, but I also have ag land. You can look down and see who's got the little dollars icon. Those folks are the ones who are going to be able to really help you get the applications filled out, submitted, and get you moving forward with that. If you're interested, in events, Nancy from WOA is on the call. She does a great job with the Women of WOA group membership as far as keeping those events going. I mentioned we have some events. Folks are available for technical help. So use this as a quick reference before you use Google to find out who it is that you think you should reach out to start managing some aspect of your woods. Go ahead and click. Okay, and please, again, interrupt me if I'm running out of time. I'll talk through this, maybe just this one example of a recent success story that I had in my role as a forestry educator, working with a woman woodland owner to really help her honestly take that first step. She came to me shortly after we started working virtually, emailed me, said, hey, I'm really interested in removing invasives. My neighbors mentioned that they know that they have them, and I'm good on time. Okay. I would like to work with them to remove them because I would like to have a higher quality of forest health. I am enrolled in managed forest law, ... What is that? And she was interested in planting pollinator species. So go ahead and click. From that, I identified, okay, invasives, managed forest law, and pollinators. Those are the things that we need to figure out together to get her, to find her some resources, to educate herself on how to tackle these things, some professionals, and maybe some funding. So for the invasives piece, we have some class recordings from previous Learn About Your Land classes I recommended to her, and also connected her to the neighboring cooperative invasive species management group, because unfortunately I don't think there was one in Trempealeau County, if I remember correctly. So we worked through that. We talked about, how she could move forward with the invasives piece. And as far as managed forest law, there are managed forest law tax specialists in every area of the state that work for the DNR. So one of the tax law specialists and I were doing an upcoming webinar. I mentioned, if you're not able to attend, we can always send you the recording. And I connected her to the forester who would be putting on the presentation so she could figure out ... what is that? Because it is a little overwhelming, especially if you're just coming into ownership and you get thrown this contract that, started 30 years ago. It's a little daunting. And the last piece, pollinator species, probably most of you on this call could tell me a little bit more than I could tell you. So I didn't attempt to take this on by myself. I reached out to one of the Pheasants Forever farm bill biologists and said, hey, I have a landowner. She's really interested in planting these species. Are you able to do a property walk? And they said, yes, we can do that. Connected them, and go ahead and click. Some of her accomplishments as a landowner, working with all these great organizations. With the invasives, she got connected with that neighboring invasive species management group to attend some events, learn more about what was taking place on her property with invasives. And in doing so, got really good recommendations on how to manage buckthorn with baggies and some chemical control. And then the garlic mustard that was just, covering the forest floor on her edges. So a great success there. The MFL, she was able to attend the workshop and connected with that forester who really walked her through the plan to give her, here are the pages you want to go to, read these. We can always chat about it later, but these are the pieces that you need to understand. Got her connected with a logger, and I walked her property in February when I was very pregnant and looked at her upcoming harvest. So it was marked, ready to go. Another great success in woodland management, working with all these folks. And then the pollinator species, I can't take credit for that piece, but had the biologist walk the property with her. She learned that she actually had a species in an old field. They wanted to try to burn it to see if it would come back stronger. And she actually applied for EQIP funding to restore a second field, potentially in addition to that first field. So fingers crossed that works out for her. And I am going to ask you to skip. There's one more success story, but I want to skip.
Yeah, that would be good. If you could wrap in like a minute, that'd be great. Thanks.
Absolutely. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, pause. Here, just another plug. At the end of the presentation, I provide you quite a bit of resources, a lot of great recordings, a lot of great publications that are available to you to help you get started. Keep going. We should be right at the end. So I really hope I didn't confuse you more. Honestly, I am happy to answer any questions through the chat afterwards, email, phone call. The overwhelming but great thing is there is so much information out there, right? There are so many folks, Extension, DNR, WOAs, different state specialists that are able to help provide technical help, funding, education. And really, if there's a question, there's an answer. We just have to figure out where it is that you want to start. So if you're, still feeling a little confused or scared or, excited, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to help you get that first step rolling. Yeah, there's my contact information. And let me see if I can quickly pull up a baby photo. Can everybody see me or no? Let's see.
Yeah, we can. Aw.
Yes.
Great
So
shot.
my supervisor's letting me stay here a little longer. He isn't screaming, so please feel free to ask questions in the chat or email me later. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Such great information, Lauren. Thank you so much. So let's move along. We're running short because we have so much great information here. But finally, we'll hear from Adina Risman, professor in the Department of Forest and Wildlife Ecology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She directs the PI Lab, which stands for People, Institutions, and Ecosystems. And she conducts interdisciplinary research on the human and policy dimensions of sustainable forestry and agriculture. Thank you so much for joining us, Adina. Let's see if you can share your slides. If not, Sarah does have access to them.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me. I've learned so much, and this has been fantastic to be part of. And yeah, wishing everybody a great day. So let's go ahead and give it a try with the screen sharing.
Excellent.
Looks like it's sharing. Is that good?
Looks great.
Great. So thanks for that great introduction. My name is Adina Rissman. I am a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I've had the privilege to work with many new landowners and professionals who help support new landowners through a project we call the New Landowner Project, or Conservation and Succession Success. So as land is transferring to new owners, we're in the research focus trying to understand what are some of the trends, who's buying or inheriting new land, and then in the outreach, working to work with the network to support new landowners. Just a little bit about my lab and research group is that we work, I have a lab of graduate students, and we work quite a bit with a lot of different questions around natural resources in the social sciences in particular. So here's my grad students. You can see us at the terrace and doing some office cleaning, but we also really enjoy being in the field. I'm also a mom, so you can see me with my son. I've got 2 kids, and I'm a newly aspiring hunter, and I've had a treat to be able to do a Women in Conservation Work Day planned by Pheasants Forever and a variety of other groups here in Wisconsin. So it's really both a joy for me professionally and personally to be part of this really growing and expanding network of women in conservation. One of the things that we've been looking at is this analysis of land ownership change. So these questions of who is buying or inheriting land and thinking about what they're doing with it. And there's this big national conversation happening about the graying of America's landowners. So as people are getting older, there's more and more land transfers happening. So I just want to share a couple of data slides here. One of the things we've been looking at is who are these new landowners? So this is data from Wisconsin. It's from real estate transfer records. So each time land transfers hands, people fill out a little form about it. And this is the data that comes out of it. We are estimating male and female names based on Social Security Administration data. So we know that's not perfect system. It's not giving us a variety of other kinds of information. And it's just these categories of male, female, or both. But it's a starting place. And so you can see, want to kind of direct us with our focus today to that dark green line. This is land that is 5 or more acres with at least a little bit of woods on it. It doesn't have to be all woods. And you can see that the number of lands held by women is growing. And you can see that really all these categories are growing. So there's more and more lands transferring hands, and sometimes there's more and more splits, so we can just have more and more parcels. This is data over 2014 to 2021, and you can see that kind of elbow in the graph around the pandemic. So the 2020 and 2021 data, you definitely start to see even more of an uptick in new owners coming into the land. But you can see that still a large chunk is held with, at least from what we can tell, male only first names. And there's a lot of names of owners that are unknown, both LLCs or companies that may have land, as well as just names that the computer can't figure out the likely or expected gender of. When we look at that by county, you can see a couple of things. One is I've taken out the unknown, so just showing you that female only, male only, and both. There are differences by county. So you can look at the county where you are. There's just a couple of counties that the data doesn't match up very well with the parcel records to be able to put it in place. But for most counties, we're able to get those data and link it up to the GIS, which is what we need to be able to tell if there's woods on the land. A couple other things might stand out, like Milwaukee County. Well, there's, that's a place where there's a lot more female-only names showing up in the data, as well as Menominee County. That's the one in the Northeast, but that's just a few records. So it's hard to know if that's, just a little bit of randomness with just a couple of transfers in the county. But for all the other counties, these represent hundreds to thousands of land transfers over this time period. When we asked women landowners and resource professionals about their experience, we've really had the privilege to speak with many people in the state and nationally, and we've talked with both landowners as well as resource professionals. As Lauren mentioned, the values and goals that people are bringing to their land are really important, and drive that vision of why they want to own land. Being outdoors, having a stewardship ethic and stewardship practices. And I think for women, even maybe more than for men, really this thinking about flowers and food as part of forests and as part of land management tends to come up quite a bit. And we've seen that in the images that we've heard today, or the images we've seen in the stories we've heard today. Some of the things that people mentioned as barriers, finances can be a barrier, just in wage and inheritance disparities, but also opportunities as people are able to advance in their careers or have funds in other ways. Another barrier, as Lauren mentioned, thinking about limitations, just being busy, full-time careers, parenting, there's a lot of time demands. And when we ask people about their gender-related experiences, I would say that really it was when we heard negative stories, which was not all the time, but we did hear some negative stories, and it was more actually coming from women professionals than landowners. And I think that's interesting. I think one of the things that's really emerged is this great network of women professionals who are able to support landowners, and who may be themselves, seeing some of the gender disparities in their field. In the sustainable agriculture field, there's a lot of women and a real strong culture of supporting women. I would say in the forestry and wildlife field, for myself, I see fewer women, although that is changing. And just interestingly, over 100 years ago, when women were part of efforts to do early conservation, there were some intentional choices made by, let's say, the Forest Service to not work as closely with women's groups, over 100 years ago. And that's really changed. So I think we're seeing some of those legacies, but a lot of change as well. So I know we're running short out of time. We are continuing to do research and outreach as part of our efforts, and feel free to contact me if you want to learn more about it. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Adina. That's really fascinating. It's wonderful to blend together some of those social realities. With that, I think we're getting a wonderful set of questions in the chat, and I think I will pass it on to Stephanie, but we'll keep looking at the chat, and if people need to leave, you're welcome to, but also some of us can stay on so we can continue the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena. And thank you so much, Adina and Lauren and Margaret, for this wonderful information. So yeah, we are running a little bit behind on time. Before we move on to opening up the unmuting and physical chatting, just to let you know that there's a lot of great questions that came in, and we will address some of those in a follow-up email, or another thing that we often will do is we'll post them on our listserv, which you can sign up for by emailing info@wiwic.org. And then Sarah, if you could open up our closing PowerPoints, that would be terrific. So one of the main goals of the WiWiC project is we want to get conservation plans into the hands of all of you women farmers. So each region has a set number that they are a goal that they're trying to reach. And if you would be interested in one of those, please contact us and we will set you up with the right coordinator and get to work on getting a conservation plan into your hand. So thank you for attending this and sharing this lunchtime with us at our summer camp Zoom lunch. And then remember also to register for field days coming up in your area. Always be in touch if you have questions or want to connect about conservation plans.